I started doing workshops and doing groups where I'm getting up in front of others, like outside of the gym setting, and talking about resilience and perseverance and goal setting and vision and taking action. You should know what 1 hour of your time is worth. You should know the value that you bring to the marketplace. You know what your passion is. It starts with clarity of vision. If you don't have the clarity of vision, whatever next thing you get, you're not going to see it through because you don't have the clarity of vision. So the point of my pain was being told you will never run or jump again. All that stuff, I was like, you know what, like, I want to be able to take this even bigger. If you know why you do what you do, you have to know how to charge for what you do. That's how you're going to change your life, and that's how you're going to leave a legacy for your children and your family. You got to know your worth. All right, this is Rob, and I'm back with episode number 349 of Shut Up and Grind. And now, before you try to call me out, I know everything says episode 350, but 349 was supposed to be at noon today, and they canceled on me at the last minute, and I didn't have time to change all the graphics. So when this goes on to Spotify, I'll make sure everything is accurately depicted. All right, so we're all about overcoming obstacles, defying the odds, and helping you clear whatever is blocking your path to the success that you want in this lifetime. So I created this show to empower, to inspire, to ignite your inner fire, and then unleash the new you. And how do we do that? We bring guests on from all over the world that have been through all kinds of trauma, PTSD, abuse, violence, loss, fires, kidnappings. Like the amount of stories that I've displayed on this show has been absolutely astonishing. The things that people were able to bounce back from. So that's the purpose of this show. And today we're speaking to someone in the future. She's joining me from Australia. So it's already Friday morning over there. But first we got to do the little thumbnail intro. We're going to be talking to Marie, and she's going to open up about how she built the Unsilenced Grief community, normalizing conversations around adversity and infusing even the heaviest topics with lightness and practical healing tools. So I had the pleasure of being on her show a couple weeks ago, and today we welcome her to Shut Up and Grind. Marie, how we doing?
The future is looking bright. I love that.
All right. So
I'm doing great. How are you, Rob?
Yourself. Oh, great thing. I'm always great. But tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. So everything I do in my life is about bringing more lightness into grief. And we'll definitely be delving into my background story, how I actually got to do that. But right now I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and I also host beautiful celebrations of life. And I just love the work that I do. I love the lightness, the joy, and the happiness that I bring into the field of grief, which is usually rather heavy and dark. And I don't think it has to just be like that.
I agree with that 100%. I think that's why we clicked so well when we did your show, because there's bad things that happen. There are things people go through, and not saying that the feelings aren't real, but like you can feel what you feel and still move forward, right? And still move forward. Like a lot of people get stuck on that, and they end up stuck on that hamster wheel where they can't move themselves forward. So let's start with your childhood. And what did you aspire to be when you were younger?
As long as I remember, I always wanted to be a dancer. I then sort of morphed into wanting to run away with a circus and becoming a circus clown. When I was 12 years old, I had a pen pal who was a circus clown, and we wrote letters to each other, like that's showing my age here, for a couple of years. There was this really beautiful friendship because they came through our small town where I grew up in Austria. And we just all got really, really excited having the circus there, and a couple of my friends and I sort of snuck in the back way and met this circus clown called Chico. And we were having a chat with him and learning about like what circus life really is. And he really opened his world to us in a way which was really beautiful, and we just started writing letters for a few years. So I was like, maybe it could be a dancer and a circus clown, but I just love the idea of the beautiful life that he lived, like bringing joy to people all around the world. It was just amazing. Isn't there a
Yeah.
connection to what I do now? I never saw that until you asked me. I'm like, oh, hold on.
Well, it's you brought up the word purpose, and purpose is everything, because purpose is what actually helps people heal from the things that they've been through. Like if you just do the same things over and over and over every single day, and it's just mundane, like you're not living into something that's bigger than you, then that thing that you're holding on to, it grows and it grows and it grows. So wait, I don't want to ask you that yet. I'll save that for later. Let me just write it down. Let me ask you that. Yeah, we write it down. When we get into the heart of your story, I'll ask you. All right. So you had those aspirations, and then what were some of the toughest challenges you had growing up?
I would go straight to when I was 20 and my dad passed from cancer. That was definitely the hardest challenge at that time for me, because grief is something that is just simply not taught, neither in schools nor in families. It is something that is sort of, the way you handle that is you go to the funeral, you wear black, and hundreds of people say my condolences, and then you move on with your life. That's grief wrapped up in a nutshell, how we were taught back then, how you handle grief, which is, in other words, not to handle it at all. You just suppress it, you just carry on, as they say, and I could not handle that quite well. So I felt really excluded in my world. I felt I was the only one in the entire world this happened to, which of course I knew wasn't true up here, but emotionally that's how I felt. And in my world, in my circle of friends, I was the only one that happened to. I didn't know anybody else who lost their dad at that age. And the only person that came close to losing their dad was my boyfriend at the time, who was really close to my dad as well, by the way, because he had no connection to his dad. So when my dad passed away, I looked at him and I'm like, so what are you going to do about that now? I was literally front on, not in a mean way. I just said, your dad is still around. I think it's freaking time you make amends with him, because he had been living off his mom's, let's call it, anger towards his dad. And he was very solidary with his mom. And because he was living with his mom, he just cut contact with his dad. And he actually made amends and is still in touch with him now. And I'm really, really happy that such a tragedy in my life has brought such beauty into his life. And I met his dad, and it was really lovely to see that there was something beautiful coming out of that. But I think this is where we need to dig deeper, really, to find those hidden gifts in adversity, to make sense of it all. Because in the bigger picture, everything always makes sense. But when you're in the depth of grief, it's really hard to see it. And you might not be ready to talk about it in that way or see it from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what I mentioned about purpose, it's like having purpose, like when you're working on a mission, it's like you don't have time to be in the dark place. That doesn't mean you don't feel things. So that doesn't mean you don't get anxious every now and then, right? Doesn't mean like I won't have, like, I spoke in depth on your show about losing my dad. Like there are moments where absolutely I wish I could just hear his voice again. Those moments arise. It arises for everybody. For everybody. But I also know when my alarm goes off, there's people dependent on me to show up. When I coming on doing my platform and being on other people's platforms, people are counting on me to show up. And that's how you get yourself out of those dark places, when you're taking your experiences and you're taking the things that you've gone through, like you did, losing your dad, helping your friend reconnect with his dad. So now, like what happened can't unhappen. It can't unhappen. So all we can do now is learn from it and move forward and ensure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, death only
But
happens
it also,
once, but you know what I mean.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But I think people listening to that who might be very fresh in grief, who might have just lost the person, it might sound to them quite confronting or too harsh when we say that. And I just want to add in
Yes.
there, what we really need to learn is to create that space for healing. Because people instantly go like into let's move on, like, and when you said when my alarm goes off, I have to show up for people depending on me, etc., etc. It's such a perfect example that you say that this morning, because yes, I do agree. And this morning, I actually woke up to a beautiful message of Monica, a friend of mine. She's an incredible storyteller, and she's also the founder of Stories That Stir, where I spoke and shared my story. It's quite similar to TEDx, but more like in the what stirs people, really, And last night we had this boutique little networking function, just 10 people on a boat and in the marina. It was just so beautiful. And the intention, and this is what I want to get to, that's why I'm sharing this story. The intention of that networking function was simply connection, not selling, just connection, not selling your services, not selling who you are, what you do, just connection. And that we really had. It was so beautiful, and there was this sharing circle of what everybody did, but it wasn't even about the business. It was your intention, your purpose, what brought you here, what is your intention and your purpose in the world. So I want to throw that word intention into it, because when you pair that, when intention walks hand in hand with purpose, it's just magical what happens. And Monica texted me this morning, it's like, how are you feeling? And it was really funny, because at first I thought, well, is she asking if I'm seedy? Because there were a few bubblies last night on a boat as well. And but what she actually meant was, and I felt bad going there straight away. And I'm like, well, I'm feeling actually really great. And she's like, I'm feeling so full of love. And I'm like, I know exactly what you mean. It was so beautiful. And she said that Tommy, the guy who owns the boat, his intention was connection. And I'm like, you know what? I think we need to do this more often when we wake up, to think about the first thing before you even get out of bed. What is the intention that I bring to this day? Because the purpose to me is something bigger. It's like the umbrella, it's the overall, it's a big picture, but the intention is something that you can bring to every single day. What's my intention today? And is that going to serve my purpose? And I just love that. I just had to bring that in, because I feel that is really something that we can think about and set every single morning when the alarm goes off, to pair that with, okay, alarm goes off, what's my intention? Go within, just set that intention for the day, and it sets you up in such a different way. And the intention can simply be healing, or, let me sit with my grief today, or let me nurture myself so I'm not hurting as much anymore, or let me allow help in, it can be anything. But the intention, I think every healing journey starts with a decision first. And when we don't learn that we're actually allowed to heal, then it's really hard to decide that we want to do that, if we're still stuck in that old-fashioned matter of how you handle, aka not handle, grief.
Absolutely. And to your point, everybody, no matter what you're going through, you're one decision away. Now, the timing of that decision, like someone like me, I can pivot on a dime, but that's just me. That's how I've always been. There's other people. It might take them 6 months. It might take them 5 years to make that decision. But ultimately, no matter how many conversations you have, no matter how many motivational videos you watch, no matter how many podcasts you tune into, no matter how many doctors you see, at some point you have to decide, I'm done with this place, and I want to move to a better place. So people try to push the timing, like you mentioned earlier. Well, people will be like, just let it go. It's time to get over it. It's time to move on. No, people move at their own pace. But once you make that decision, those steps are the same. Whether you make it immediately, whether it takes you 5 years to make it, you still have to come to terms with what was. And then you have to decide that you're going to grab the bull by the horns, and you're not going to let this thing hurt you anymore.
Yeah. Well, I see, I'm very slightly intolerant to the word have to, because the thing is, for me, every time somebody says have to, then I'm like, well, according to who? And people listening to this, I'm like, well, of course you don't have to decide that you want to heal, but what's the alternative? Just always think about that.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? If you don't want to decide to heal, if you don't want to decide to feel better, if you don't want to decide to accept that your person has died, as hard as that is, then what's the alternative? Well, because if you don't decide, here's the have to, but if you don't decide, then you decide that you want to stay stuck. And I'm going to say that again. If you don't decide that you want to heal, you're actually deciding that you want to stay stuck. If you want it or not making a decision is already a decision. You're deciding that you're staying stuck. And I think so many people don't realize the choices that we have and the choices that we make, even if we make it out of a lack of seeing other choices, other possibilities that there are. We are making a decision. We are making a choice. And I'm going to bring one example very quickly here because I find that very, very important. And I think it explains what I want to say here so well, because I work with a lot of moms in my space, and my space, saying in the space of grief. And when they say to me, like, oh, here's the word again, I have to get out of bed because of my kids, then I'm like, well, here's the thing. Let me just reflect that back to you. You don't have to. But what it's telling me when you say that, when you do that, that somewhere inside of you, you have made a decision that you want to show up for your kids. We just need to change our language around that. Because when you realize that you want to show up for your kids, it becomes such a purposeful and such a beautiful thing that you're doing for them. Because you did get out of bed, you did make them the lunchbox, you did get them to school on time, you did clothe them in clean clothes and get them to school. So by you doing all of that, I feel that you need to own that, what you've just done. Own it, own it, own it in your heart. And I was like, wow, I chose to get up this morning to feed my kids, to take them to school, to have them clothed and ready in time. And that is already something that you can be proud of, that you did that. Because when you're in that mindset of, I have to, then you probably forget that there are a lot of people out there who don't choose to get out of bed in the morning because they feel they don't have the power to do so. They are staying stuck in their grief. They are staying stuck in bed. They are staying stuck in the darkness. And sometimes their path goes down drugs, alcohol, and sometimes, unfortunately, also suicide. So there are other options. And no, I don't want them for you. So all I want for you is to see what you're actually already choosing and own that, because it makes it so much more powerful when you realize, wow, I actually have chosen to show up for my kids, and I am doing a lot better than I just gave myself credit for, when I come from the perspective, I have to get on for my kids. See it from the perspective of choice, and it feels so much more empowering, and you can own that.
See, and that's the beauty of doing the show and bringing people on and sharing other perspectives. Because like for me, like the literal name of the show is Shut Up and Grind, right? So for me, it's like I don't have choices. I'm on one mission. That's it.
Yeah.
One mission. And
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm thankful that you're bringing this other side to it. And that's the beauty of people having conversations. Because and I can even use my gym as an example. There are people that need me to hit them with the most brutal truth right between the eyes. And there's other people that need the hand on the shoulder, the look in the eyes. You can do this. I believe in you.
Yeah.
So like there's different approaches for everything. Like with me, whatever the task is, I'm a straight line right at the bullseye.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. But to your point, not
and it's a
everybody
choice you
responds
make.
to that.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So I agree. Hello, Monique. My sister's on.
Hello, Monique.
All right. All right. So let's go back to, you said you were 20 years old. Your father passed of cancer, and I think this question matters because like my dad got sick in January and he passed in November. So so what was the timeline? Because like a woman I trained with, her father just suddenly dropped. So it's like we had time to mentally prepare. She got smacked in the face with a frying pan. So it's like, what was the timeline?
A very interesting one. So my dad got diagnosed with cancer in November 1990. And I remember that so vividly because it was just when, actually, it was 1990, because he fought for like 2 months, and he got into ICU very abruptly, unexpected, where the doctors thought he was getting better, and it was over New Year's, and I was in Italy. I went to Rome with my best friend at the time, because he fell in love with this Italian girl. We spent New Year's in Rome, and I'm saying that because I checked with the doctors, is it safe to go? I didn't want to leave my dad behind if he wasn't great, you know. They were like, no, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. I walk away, I go to Rome, I celebrate New Year's, and the first thing I get in the new year is the message that your dad is in ICU. And I'm like, what the, you know, I just, so I came back, and it was the first time in my life that I said, I love you to my dad in ICU, lots of tears. I realized that I had actually never said that to him. I want to bring this in because only 2 days ago, I spoke to my best friend in Austria, and she said, you know, how the I love you in German is so much harder to say culturally. We don't say I love you as much as we say it in English. We say it all the time. We say it to friends. We do. It doesn't weigh as heavily as it does in Austria. In Austria, it's more like a romantic thing, you know. There is a phrase that doesn't exist in English. That is, ich hab dich lieb, which is like a mix between I like you and I love you. I'm very fond of you, whatever, but it sounds very romantic. In German, it's more like you would say the two sisters, two brothers. So I said that to my dad a lot, but I never told him I love you. And I said that the first time in ICU. Then he made a miraculous recovery, where all the doctors were like, we have no idea how this man survived this. He had 3 things that were all like one-way street. None of them people have ever come out alive. He had 3 of those, and he made a recovery, which was amazing. So he was asked to write an article, what he thinks, you know, he bases his recovery on. And he had a very strong faith, my dad as well. And he based it on faith, on love for his family, etc., etc. So we had an entire year of dad being in remission, being fine. Every half a year he went to checkups. And then in 1992, the cancer came back on the 12th of August, and on the 12th of September, he was gone. So when he came back, it took him in a month. It came back very aggressive, and and that was like literally 12 days after my 20th birthday.
So what were your initial feelings?
Oh, I felt like my whole life fell apart. It was literally somebody had pulled a rug underneath my feet. I did not see death as an option. I remember having a conversation in the car with my dad where I asked him front on, I said, do you think you're going to make it? And he looked at me and he said, well, I made it the first time, didn't I? In hindsight, I knew that was his way of not wanting to lie to me. He already knew that he was dying. But he didn't want to say that to me because he didn't want to burden me with that. And I still remember that so vividly, that conversation in the car. Are you going to make it? Well, I made it the first time. He did not want to say, I don't think so. You know, and that was really, I think having open conversations with your children, with your loved ones, with anyone, when you know you're dying, I think you're actually giving them a gift. And I'm not saying, well, my dad did the wrong thing. He did what he felt was right in that moment. But with everything that I know now, with everything that I'm teaching, with everything that I've gone through and experienced myself, I now really encourage people to have the what if conversation. When I shared at the beginning that I do celebrations of life, I actually also do living legacy celebrations where the person is still around, where the person has got terminal illness, but you decide to do the celebration now where that person can still experience it with you. And I think there's something so sacred and magical about doing that. It's incredible. I think we really need those conversations more openly and talk about the fears, talk about the beautiful memories, talk about what you want to say and have never said to that person. It's gold.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I shared that on your show, that we did that with when my dad turned 70. We had a living eulogy for him. And, you know, it's like, why wait till he dies? But I want to expand on something that you just said, because like my family went through it too. That where you said you didn't want to believe that death was an option. I think that's a big thing that people have to grasp, is that death is a part of life. Like it's coming for all of us, right? For all of us. So I remember we were in the cafeteria at the hospital, And everyone kept saying, when he wakes up, when he wakes up, when he wakes up.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, I said, we got to have the realistic conversation. What if he doesn't?
Yeah.
And and they didn't want to hear that. And it's like, I get it, but it's a real possibility. Like,
Yeah,
he
of
just
course.
had his second open heart surgery in a span of a week.
Yeah.
Like, he's almost 80 years old. Like, there's a chance that this could be
Yeah.
it. So if it
Yeah.
is, what we need a game plan. And
Yeah.
it's like, so once people started talking about it, I mean, it's not like it made it any better, but that conversation had to be had.
Yeah.
It's almost
I
like you
agree.
anticipated my next question, because you started going there, and I was like, oh. It's like
Bring it.
she knows where I'm going with this. So just, I want you to expand on when you started. I mean, I know he got taken quickly that second go round, but when did you start to accept the fact that you had to move on without him?
That took me a long time. I don't even remember when the actual point was where I accepted it. I remember the worst experience for me after my dad's passing was the funeral, where hundreds of people hugged me and told me my condolences. My condolences. And I'm saying that deliberately that way because that's how it felt. It felt very draining. I felt like every sentence of my condolences sucked a little bit more lifeblood out of me. I felt so drained and empty when the condolences line was done. So I decided to not do that to my children. And I'm already taking a little bit away from my story here, but we'll get into that in a minute anyway. But it was just something where I felt like this is so debilitating, and whatever power I had left in that moment was sucked out of me. And the acceptance part, I don't think that came for years, to be honest. I was really carrying this heaviness around for a long time. For at least the first year was like a blur. I can't even remember like how I got through it. I still had to finish I was in advertising college at the time. It was right smack bang in the middle, and then the second year started and I had to graduate from that. The teachers literally carried me through. I have to say that it was just amazing how they all rallied around me. But I don't think I could really value that in that moment because I was so numb. I was so like a walking zombie. I just really, my dad was my everything. We were so close, and to lose him at such an early age was really hard for me. And about a year after my dad passed away, I started therapy and started working through, because what grief does, it brings up all the unhealed wounds of your childhood, all the undealt with, if that's even a word, things that you have in your childhood. And I started working through them, and I went on and off to different forms of therapy, group therapy and Gestalt therapy and all these things, and hypnotherapy actually as well, which was incredible, to work through whatever came up. And it took me a good 10 years till I realized in my early 30s, actually, like, oh my goodness, I had been stuck in victimhood for most of my life and I don't like it. So what you do when you don't like something, you change it. So I'm like, all right, going forward, I don't have to make that choice anymore. I don't want to live my life from a space of victimhood anymore. The poor me, my dad passed away. I lost my dad so early and my childhood was, really, Anyway, I don't even want to go there. That's for a different podcast. But there was this whole, make a choice, Marie. Wake up now. You've spent more than 30 years in victimhood. Let's change it for the rest of your life, because it's just so much more beautiful and fulfilling, when you step out of victimhood and make a choice that you want to live life to the fullest. And so yes. I'm going to go to the next point. In that time, I made my choice and I moved to Australia. I did what I always wanted to do. It was my biggest dream to move to Australia ever since I can remember. My dad asked me on my 17th birthday, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, a ticket to Australia. He said, we can't afford that. We didn't have the money back then. But when I was in my early 30s, I moved to Australia. I did it. I came here in 2004.
That's great. All
Yeah.
right. So, is there anything else you want to touch on from that period before we talk about unsilenced grief and how that whole thing came to life?
No, we can move straight into that because now I've already given you the next step. So I think we should just move with that.
All right. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, how did you first come up with the concept?
So I will answer that question by sharing my story because otherwise it's not going to make sense for people. So when I moved to Australia, 10 months later, I met Rob, my husband, not you. My husband's named Rob as well. So Rob Alessi, I met him 10 months after moving here. And 5 months later, he proposed, and 5 months later, we got married. So, literally, 10 months after moving, I met him. 10 months after, I was married. And if anybody would have told me that, I was like, no way. If he's Mr. Right, he'll still be Mr. Right in 2 to 5 years. Why the rush? But when I met Rob, everything made sense. Everything made sense. I knew why I was in Australia. I knew that I had met the right person. And it was just he was such a beautiful person, like just good through and through. I've never met anyone like him before or after. So he was just this always happy, always smiley, loving life to the fullest, like, jumping around, like bouncing off the walls, like not hyper energetic, but just always positive. I just loved his energy. And he had two beautiful boys. With the first birth of my first son, I moved out of advertising, the world that I've been living and breathing in for a good decade, because I just knew that you can't combine it with family. And then we had our second sons, Soflin and Jed, were born in 2008 and 2010. And I then delved into self-development because I've been doing so much work in the background on my own, to get out of victimhood, to work through my childhood, to work through my dad's passing, to work through anything that was holding me back in becoming who I knew I needed to be without even being able to put words to it back then. I didn't know who that me would be, but I felt some greatness calling me, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I'm going to share one moment about that with you. I was at the front door. The boys were already outside. Rob and I were still inside putting our shoes on. And I remember having this vision pop up for me. And I said to him, babe, I keep having this vision of me talking to thousands and thousands of people. And it scared me. At the time, it really scared me. It was huge. And I'm like, ooh. And he just looked at me and smiled and said, yeah, I can so see you do that. He was always so proud of me. He was always my biggest supporter in everything he did. And I started my own coaching business in 2011. So literally when the boys were 3 and 1, it was intense. And
Oh, wow.
I started working with transition mindset. That was my biggest thing. I did a bit of relationship coaching as well, but the majority was all based on mindset. How do you look at life? What are your choices that you make? It's actually a concept that Rob taught me. You've got two choices in life. What do you focus on? And the business got quite successful quite quickly and took off really nicely. And I was like 7.5 years into my business when Rob went on a business trip and he never made it home. So that day was just where everything just pivoted in our lives. And we walked him to the station because he caught the train to the airport. He flew across Australia. He was on the other side of Australia on a business trip. And 2 days later, like the night before, we even chatted on the phone that he would wake me up. And the next day, the phone call didn't come. So I kept calling. Then I eventually called the hotel. And as I called the hotel, I had a split second of a vision, beautiful visions in my life popping up here, of Rob collapsing in a shower. And I was shaking my head thinking, don't even go there, Marie. What are you doing? What are you doing to yourself? And I said it out loud to them, though. I said, and can you please check, can you send somebody up to the room, and can you please check in a shower? I said it to them. And I thought they must think I'm completely crazy, to say something like that. But that's where they found him. Rob had a brain aneurysm and collapsed in the shower. He had died in the shower. And
wow,
that was it. That was the pivotal moment where our lives just changed in an instant, and here was also my moment to realize very, very consciously how our lives are changing right now is up to me to decide. And Rob and I had the what if conversation about 3 years prior to his passing, which was such a blessing in disguise. He had come home late from work. And he called me on the way home. He said, babe, I'm going to be like 2 hours late. There was an accident on Heathcote Road, which is like a one-way road through the entire national park. So if there's an accident, the detour is horrendous, and especially peak hour traffic, everybody coming home from work. A young dad has lost his life that night. His daughter was only 16 months old. It was a frontal collision with a truck, and Rob and I sat on the bed that night and said, what would you do if that happened to us, So we had this, what would you do? What would you do? And I'm really so grateful that we did have this conversation. That's why I always encourage open conversations about that, because this conversation became my North Star in my darkest hour. Because what we said to each other was, if something was to ever happen, I want you to create the happiest life possible for the boys and yourself. And we meant that wholeheartedly, because love just wants you to be happy. That's simple. It's not easy, trust me, but it's that simple. Love just wants you to be happy. And that's what popped up for me when I had to share the news with the boys that their dad had just died.
And how was that?
It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my entire life. By far. Like, having to share that is just, it really breaks your heart. It's like just seeing them sitting there, not knowing what is about to hit them, and then having to say, because there's no sugarcoating a message like your dad just died, you can't sugarcoat that. You just have to say it. And sitting in that space with them and holding them while they were crying was just really, it really broke me in that moment. And I'm like, I'm not going to let this define their lives. We need to do something with this. I knew that very early on, and I had no idea how to make this happen, but I knew that I needed to do something. I knew the direction. The direction was happiness. How to get there, I had no idea. You don't know how to get to happiness when you were just stumped into this huge space and, this heaviness of grief. It is heavy. It really is. And that's why making the decision that this is not going to suck us under, for the lack of better words, that was really life-changing. And I know it sounds like a flick the switch solution. It wasn't. It was a huge journey. It was a process. It was a decision I made every single day when I woke up. Every day and every night when I woke up crying, I made the decision that I will do something with that. I'm not going to let that suck us under. I need to stay afloat. I need to stay strong. I want to create a happy life for them. And that's where the decision was made. In every darkness, in every heaviness, I made the decision that I wanted to get them out of here. So not to avoid it, not to not feel it, but to give them a better and a lighter place to process their emotions, because the emotions need to be processed either way. But you can, I'm just going to give you a very stark contrast example. You can process those heavy emotions in a dark corner in your room in absolute darkness and solitude, or you can process these emotions in the Maldives in the sun and sit with those emotions there in lightness, in brightness and sun, in a pool overlooking, vastness, ocean and beautiful fish. So you've got choices to make. You can't take shortcuts, no, but you can take the scenic route rather than the heavy traffic. And I always go to scenic route. It's a perfect example. I still choose it every time, even if it adds time to your travel. But I love taking the scenic routes, and I did the exact same thing with grief.
Absolutely. Yeah. You said we need to do something with this, right? And that's why I try to speak on as many podcasts that deal with grief, overcoming, loss, because like all of the emotions feel the same. And this is my opinion, because I think I said on your show, pain is pain, right? It doesn't matter what the source of the pain is, but the steps to recovery are very similar, right? No matter what it is. And you just said it, every day you have to wake up and make that decision. Like when when he first passed, that first like month, it was hell. It's like
Yeah.
I faced it, I accepted it, but you have to wake up and do it all over again. It's kind of like 51st
Mm.
Dates. When they had to wake up and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
play the
I
videotape
watched this
every
movie
single day.
plenty of times.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's what it's like when you're navigating tough times. Is
Mm.
I always say it's the hardest, easiest thing you can do. Because
Mm.
the decision to want to be happy is an easy decision to make,
Yeah.
but processing all of the
Yeah.
emotions and the feelings along the way, that's
It's
the tough part.
simple.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
simple. It doesn't
you
make it
know,
easy. Yeah.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
like I said, the alarm goes off. I get out of bed. I stand up. I turn on the light, and I take my blood pressure meds. Like
Mm.
that's my routine. There is no laying down.
Mm.
There's no scrolling on my phone. There isn't
Mm.
snooze. Snooze isn't even enabled on my phone. Like
I love it.
going back to going back to me and the have to like
Yeah.
for me to get to where I want to be. This is what has to happen, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. Like I've been going since 4:30 this morning. Like
Mm.
if I want to get you onto this platform, this is the time I have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's
Yeah.
morning there for you. I can't do it
Yeah.
my regular time because you'll be in bed, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you have right. You just
Because I
gotta
don't
show
do
up when you
4:30.
need to show up. Exactly.
Yeah.
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 So how much time we got left here? We got a few. All right. So take me through your
Yeah.
podcast, through your
Yeah.
coaching, and
Yeah.
just like who do you target? Who do you work with? All that good
Yeah.
stuff.
So I'll give you the shortcut of what happened from when Rob passed to now. I'll let you do that in bullet point form because I know we're running out of time here. But what happened was when Rob passed away, I decided to seek a positive psychologist. I knew that I needed support in this too. I had a full-on breakdown after the funeral was over, and then in the same week, so the funeral was on Wednesday, and then the same week on Sunday, I walked my younger son down the aisle to his first Holy Communion. That night, I had a breakdown. Everything just fell apart. It went into primal screaming. I just need peace and quiet. I just fell apart, and I'm like, ooh, I need help in this. I noticed it in that moment because it was scary as hell, and it was such an out-of-body experience. And I could watch myself falling apart. I could not stop it from happening. So I went to a positive psychologist. I'm like, I need help in this. I need support in this. This is what happened. This is where I'm at. And she had so much compassion and empathy for me. It was beautiful because sympathy doesn't help you heal. Empathy and compassion does. So she was the perfect person to work with. And in that conversation, one of the conversations I had with her, it was like the third conversation with her. I said how heavy that weighs on me, the expectation of society for me to fall apart. They actually expecting me to fall apart and to stay stuck in grief, and the poor widow and the poor young widow and the poor young boys, and that sympathy, it's drowning you, it's not helping you heal. And she looked at me and she said, so what does grief mean to you, Marie? And to my own surprise, the first word that came up was empowerment. And I'm like, wow, okay, I did not expect that, but this is the first word that came up. And we talked a little bit about that. And I also related to that primal power that I felt in the falling apart. So I feel that you can also use that primal power to actually rebuild yourself. It depends on what you do with it. And if you learn to harness that, it's actually quite powerful, exactly that. And I looked at her and I said, you know what, I think I need to write a book about this. And she said, I think you should. So I did. I literally went and wrote a book about this in a course of like 5 weeks. I wrote and published my first book, which I titled Loving Life After Loss. And I wrote our whole story, how Rob and I met, how we fell in love, how beautiful our love story was, and then how he passed and what we did with it. And that book, to, again, my surprise, ranked in the top 100 bestseller list of Amazon Australia. I was like, whoa, okay, obviously I've got something the world needs. I need to do something with this. Again, there's always this moment, I need to do something with this, It's almost like I've been guided step by step through this process. But after the book was published, which was in October 2018, so Rob passed in June. In October, I published a book. And in November, I took the boys traveling around the world for 2 months. The first stop was the Maldives. That's why I brought that in as an example. And we sat there and we did process our grief together. And it was absolutely beautiful and sacred. And it was in paradise and very intense and beautiful and sad and everything, all the emotions, all of the above. So traveled around the world with the boys, came back and thought, okay, I need to do something with this. And I started a movement in the form of a Facebook group. And I built this to about 5,000 people that I've taken on their healing journey between 2019 and 2023. I created healing journeys, processes, programs, retreats, talks. In that group, I was in there daily, like literally holding space for thousands of people, taking them on that journey with me. And in 2023, I had this moment of, I need to step away. I cannot hold space for that many people anymore. I've felt like I've done everything. I've given everything in a way that I could, and it felt right at the time. And then I felt like I was going through burnout after burnout after burnout. I needed to step away. So I went on this really beautiful shamanic journey to sit with this decision and get the guidance that I needed to step away. I had the dates, the how to, the when, everything. And we archived the group on Rob's 5th anniversary of his passing in June 2023. Then I went to Austria, so traveling again with the boys for 5 weeks. And in the time, I went into complete surrender. I left everything behind me, which was so awesome to go traveling without any anything that you need to carry or look after while you're away. I just traveled with such lightness and in complete surrender. And when I came back in July, end of July, I was already booked to speak at Camp Widows in Brisbane in August. And when I spoke at Camp Widows, I spoke about anger, a topic that nobody wanted to touch at that stage, not in grief. And I said, bring it. I love speaking about anger. It's one of my favorite topics. And I got put into this room and they said, well, probably 20, 30 people. I just wanted to get an idea. There were 100 people in this room. And I spoke on anger and I could feel the room transform right in front of my eyes. I could feel the dissolving of anger. There was the whole energy was just so beautiful, and people lining up and hugging me and talking to me. And I'm like, wow, if I can transform a room full of people in a 1-hour talk, this is exactly where I need to be. You know, a whole lot of less responsibility of holding space for thousands of people on a daily basis, and a whole lot of more impact that I can have if I continue that journey and become a speaker. So every stage I was put on from there on was just, I had to step up. I had to step into the person who I wanted to be to help people transform their lives with the message that I had, with a different perspective, with the reframing, with storytelling, taking them on that journey. So in that whole course where I was going through that journey, I authored 3 books. I co-authored another 3 books. I did a TEDx talk on redefining our image of a widow. So it's all about, changing perspective for people and giving them a frame where they can actually find healing in that space and realize you are allowed to heal grief. Many people are in the opinion that grief never leaves you. I don't agree with that. I treat grief like a visitor. She still comes and sits with me every now and then, and that's okay. And I welcome her in and I hug her and we chat. And sometimes Joy, Grief, and I are sitting together and sharing stories, and we cry and we laugh, and all emotions all happen simultaneously. And we are absolutely aware and okay with that before grief happens. But grief enters and all of a sudden everybody thinks like all the other emotions have got no more space. It's not true. They're all here. They're all happening simultaneously. And I think we just need that awareness around that it's okay to feel joy and love and grief all at the same time. That's me. That's the
yeah. And I realize it's a cartoon, but the movie Inside Out.
Everybody comes up with that when I say that. It's so true. It is so true. I literally just wrote a newsletter this week about where is grief in Inside Out, and I used a picture of Inside Out in that newsletter. I wrote about that this week because it is so true, and I feel that grief is missing in Inside Out. There needs to be an Inside Out 3 to come out where grief is in there as well, because it's an emotion that everybody will deal with sooner or later. We just don't talk about it often enough because everybody finds it so confronting.
Well, yeah, because it's seen as a sad thing. And to your point,
that's like those sadness. Feelings, and she's an Inside Out.
True. But the feelings, it's okay. They come and they go. They come and they go. And then to going back to what you said earlier about we need to do something with this. Like when I speak about my father, and I did it on your show, it's like I tell the tough parts, I tell funny parts, I tell other tough parts, I tell funny parts. Like it doesn't just have to be a sad experience. It's like watching him pass away, I'll never unsee it, but it highlights a lot of the other moments that were just buried in my subconscious brain that I forgot about. Just the more things, like my mom and I were talking the other day, and we were bringing up stuff, just swapping stories about, like, oh yeah, like I forgot all about that. You sit back and you start reflecting on all of the good. Now, and again, that doesn't make me unsee the bad, but talking about the good helps to keep those feelings, at a minimum. But give us some final words. Let people know where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is at mariealessi.com. That's my website, and you can find all the socials from there. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me wherever you want to, but there's also a book a chat button on my website. So if you do want to reach out and have a conversation, how I can help you on the journey, by all means, please do so, because it really is me on the other side. So my final words would be just please have those conversations, have open conversations, whether you have already experienced a death in your family or not. There's never a better time to have this conversation than now. That's my final message. I think it's really important that we open up those conversations. And if you have lost somebody in your life, if somebody died in your life, if somebody transitioned, which I prefer saying, then it is really a good idea to maybe bring up that conversation and not try to avoid it or make it seem like it's all good and we all have moved on. Say their name, talk about them, share stories, and share your emotions, how you feel about it, because you'll be so surprised once you open up how that gives other people the permission to do the same.
Here we go. Sorry, it froze for a second there. So I'm not it probably cut off like the last 30 seconds.
Okay. So I just said, I really wanted to encourage people to have these conversations, because like if somebody in your life has already transitioned or not, now is always the best time to have that conversation. And if somebody in your life has passed, then please say their name, have that conversation, bring people together, because you will be surprised when you start opening up about your emotions, how it gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah, and surround yourself with positive memories. Like I got this here of my dad. There's a picture of him with my sister, with his grandkids. Picture of he and my mom at a costume party. There's a picture of my parents with their other grandchild. It's always like just having all that positivity around. It just helps, to just stay in that darkness. I mean, feel what you need to feel, but just don't stay there,
Yeah, exactly. Feelings are there to process, not to hold on to. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to be putting together a panel soon. Let me give you the overlay here. Is where I usually I usually invite 6 of my former guests, and then we'll see how many can actually show up. And depending on, like, I get the 6 first, and then I pick a topic, because I've interviewed you all. I know what you can all speak on. So once I get the 6, we pick a topic, and then we spend an hour and 15 minutes, and we just round table that one topic. And it's great, because like I said earlier, it's good to have different approaches. Like I'm a firm believer, there's no one way to solve a problem that works for everyone. Like there's billions of people on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just amazing that 7 of us can, like that last one was embracing vulnerability, and we gave 7 different takes on embracing vulnerability. So, and a lot of collaborations come out of these panels too. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll reach out to you when I do it.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, you have yourself a great morning. I'm going to be preparing for a great night, and I'm
going to make my first coffee now. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Shut Up and Grind. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. Robert has over 20 years' experience pouring his knowledge and expertise at many events in the service and fitness industry, as well as secondary schools and universities. He has a true passion for helping others break through the barriers that are holding them back. To book Robert B. Foster to speak or to reach out, go to robertbfoster.com. Till next time, shut up and grind.